Yay. Okay. So I'm super excited to welcome one of our mama graduates. So this is Kristi, and her son Caleb have just recently completed the program. Caleb is 10. Is that correct, Kristi?
He just turned 11 on Friday.
Oh, happy birthday, Caleb. So we're going to talk about him and we're going to talk about what his journey has been, what it looked like before they met us, what it looked like during, what it looks like now. And so hopefully through this process, you'll learn a little bit more about what's truly possible for a child with dyslexia. So Kristi, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to get to share our experience.
Yay, thank you. So, would you mind just starting from like the moment that you learned that Caleb was struggling with dyslexia? What was happening around that time? What did it look like? What was that process like for you guys?
I think, well, to start with, Caleb was in kindergarten, and I began to get an inkling that something was not quite right when he could tell me that his name was Caleb and it was spelled Caleb. But if you gave him letters, he could not identify which letter was the C, the A, the L, or the E, or the B. We had a very wonderful kindergarten teacher, and I reached out to her and I said, I'm seeing these things at home. Are you experiencing them at school? In which case she replied and said, I meant to call you this week. I've been noticing a few things and I'd appreciate it if you could come in. Now, like any young parent, first time go around, I did not know what dyslexia meant. It was
Sure.
a mental struggle for me for a while because I thought that every dream or aspiration that I had for my child was not going to be fulfilled. And that's a very sad place to be. Um, so you're looking for resources and things like that. And we honestly began our journey first right off the bat by having him tested through the
Okay.
school. Now we live in Texas. I know that every school and state is different, but in our state, you have to be tested through the school, and then you could go seek private testing further. Our original test results showed that Caleb had a processing disorder, which we did not agree with wholeheartedly. We
Okay.
were pretty sure Caleb had dyslexia just by some of the things that we were seeing him do.
Okay.
And definitely more of the auditory response, where we were learning what we call sight words. And he would remember them for a day. And then about 3 days later, he would have completely forgotten that that was the word the, and this is how you spell it. So we did seek private testing after that, and we did get a severe dyslexia diagnosis.
Okay.
So it was reassuring actually just to have the diagnosis and realize this is what it is. And it meant it was a goal that we could work on understanding.
Sure.
So that was our initial first foray. Unfortunately, there aren't always a lot of advocates or resources available for the dyslexic diagnosis just out in the public. It's something
Sure.
that you have to look for. We're very fortunate that we had a friend who gave us some pointers and some tips.
Mhm.
But we weren't really satisfied with the results that we got. Every time we reached out to some of these specialty brain training places, they always gave us a glass ceiling that Caleb was going to hit, and it was always very low. And I was not satisfied for that,
Mhm.
particularly when Caleb went through first grade and we were told that we had a GT kid that couldn't be in GT because he could not pass a GT test. So unchallenged, but challenged at the same time at school. Very difficult place to be.
For
Uh,
sure.
but, but nevertheless, like all parents, we were not going to give up.
Yeah.
So we have invested in private tutoring. Along with dyslexia, we did get a dyscalculia diagnosis in third grade.
Sure.
So that added an additional factor and just a sense of being overwhelmed. How do we help him be successful as an adult? Because he is not going to fit into the societal norms of education.
Mhm.
Um, just doing that continued research. And one of the most beautiful things that was said to me, and I carry it around with me, is your child has a superpower. He's a superhero. He has dyslexia, and he sees in color where the rest of the world sees in black and white. And don't let that be a limiter.
Cool.
And so that sparked a whole new side of me. We've done neurofeedback training and seen very positive results with his processing speed. However, the brain is always growing, and we knew that was not a permanent solution. And we were really looking for something that would help us instill a foundation for him to continue to grow on. So speaking of color, I just happened to run across your very colorful pictorial on Facebook, and that was how I found Retrain the Dyslexic Brain. So here we are. I just have some stats that I would love to share,
Yeah,
and then
please.
we
Yeah,
can talk
anytime.
together
Yeah,
about some of
yeah.
Caleb's results, because
You
there's
share whatever you want, Kristi.
fantastic. So Caleb is a fifth grader here in the state of Texas. We are required to take a mandatory state test. And up until this year, we use the Fontes and Pinellas ranking system to grade where your children are on the reading writing scale. So Caleb, upon entering fifth grade, was reading at a end of first grade reading level. And this is after nearly 6 years of private tutoring, process training, and support systems. We began Retrain the Dyslexic Brain at the end of November. Very excited. We wanted to start over the holiday because we didn't really know what it was going to look like. I personally was a little bit concerned about being the teacher because I don't see things the same way that my child does. My husband, who we now know is adult dyslexic diagnosed, sees things the way that Caleb does, but it wasn't something that he felt he could manage either, just because of the amount of involvement that it required. And he knew that I had that better connection. So it truly was anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes every day, which was wonderful. And by January, we switched to AMIRA testing here in the state of Texas. AMIRA is another ranking system, and we had our first initial results. So after the end of November, going through all of December, and the first week of January being tested, Caleb was reading at a third grade, fourth month reading level within 2 months of being in the program. And I just remember sitting with the ARD committee and squalling because we hadn't seen so much growth in one single period. So that was astounding. And then in February, we got our follow-up marker, and Caleb was at fourth grade 0.09, which is fourth grade first month.
That's
So
amazing.
we're still waiting on our end of year ranking and exit. But as you already know, we've got some great results that I'm sure that you can explain much better than I can.
You do. Oh my goodness. Well, there's a couple of things that I just want to say about you that I'm sure that other people can resonate with. Like, at the core of this is a parent who is unwilling to accept the status quo. And so, we had another celebration this morning, and the mom said the exact same thing that you did, Kristi. It was like, we did not want to hear what they were giving us. And that was like, you can have lesser expectations. There is this ceiling. It's only going to go to here. Great. We're super happy that you're making progress. But she was saying like the progress is so minimal, and she was overly frustrated. So I think like here it is again, at the root of this is a parent who is committed to their child's excellence. So for anybody that doesn't know what GT is, that's gifted and talented. So this is a very bright young boy who has so much to offer the world. And so what it really requires is to go back in and to allow the sight and sound systems of the brain to work together. And so that's what they did, like in the 5 to 15 minutes, or, maybe sometimes more some days, that you were able to do this work to kind of get those areas of the brain reconnected. And so will you just share, like, what are some of the cool things that he gets to celebrate now that maybe he couldn't do before, that like is awesome?
I brought you a sample.
Okay, great. Look
So
at how prepared you are.
Caleb wrote this. I'm sorry. It's not don't read what he wrote. That doesn't matter. It's the structure. This
Love
is
it.
what Caleb wrote in January. when we started the program. It's actually his New Year's resolutions.
Okay.
They say things like eat healthy sometimes, but sometimes it's not even
Good, Kayla.
spelled phonetically.
Sure.
Um, play outside, but we're missing our vowels or our hidden sounds, like our silent E's. As part of our project at school, Caleb had to keep a journal. Um, so this is our journal. And he kept a journal every day for several weeks as part of his closing project. I've never seen Caleb write so much independently in my life. Not only is the majority of it spelled correctly, but the words that are not are spelled phonetically, which means he is making those processing connections that were not quite firing when we expect them to. So those are two of our amazing samples. I've also shared this picture that I took right before one of our question and answer sessions with Caleb, where Caleb wrote on a whiteboard, I can write, and he spelled it all correctly. And it was a huge deal to him to be able to do that. And I did notice when I was looking for these samples to share with you guys is that Caleb didn't write a lot in the past. Most of his stuff was images or pictures
Sure.
or shorthand, like he would write the word love, L-U-V. Now we know that all kids do that, but for him, it was a escape way of not having to write fully. So I did notice that most of the stuff that we would get would be those 1 to 2,
Sure.
maybe 4-word sentences, and no punctuation, no capitalization. Items like that were really missing. So one of the benefits that have been really exciting is Caleb's processing speed has just incredibly sped up. We don't see him word finding when he speaks to us anymore. No
Amazing.
more and he used to make this like clicking sound where he smacked his mouth before speaking. So he doesn't do any of those things anymore.
That's
He gives
amazing.
you a full cohesive thought in sentence, and it's just straight from the mind out of the mouth. And that's been beneficial. And
Wow.
likewise on our math side, with our writing on word problems and things like that, we've seen a benefit there as well. So across the board, we've seen growth, and that's not even talking about the mental and developmental aspects of having confidence,
Yep.
being more social, and engaging
Is
with
he?
better. Oh yeah, this is kid's a little social butterfly. Like, bye mom, I'm gone.
Oh,
And
that's
for
awesome.
me, that is such a joy because early in our diagnosis, when he was struggling in school, he started displaying control tendencies. Like if you asked him to give him an answer with manipulatives, he would sit there and put all the manipulatives in color order before he tried to give you an answer because he was delaying so that he didn't
Okay.
have to do it.
Got it.
So for me, he's willing to take risks and we're just continuing to work on it. It's really fantastic not to have a limiter. And
Yeah.
originally, when I talked about some of the original numbers we were given, our anticipated growth was only 10 to 11%.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right when you say that for some people, they just don't know enough about dyslexia yet. Like they really haven't done a great job in education. Like as a former educator, I know that I had 0 classes for how to support a child with dyslexia, what it even was. And I think some of that is getting a bit better now. But still the large majority of people don't know what it is, how to support it, all of those things. And so as a parent, often, you're researching into the night trying to figure out what do I do with this diagnosis now? How do I help my child? And oftentimes you're going to those meetings more equipped with information than the people that are at the meeting. So that's hard too, because you never imagine yourself as a parent having to take on that advocacy role, but here you are and like having to say this isn't good enough. Like I know that this gifted and talented child has the capacity to do so much better than this. And so you just kind of take it into your hands and say, great, show me what to do, and we'll take off. So I mean, from a mom's perspective, I mean, I'm sure if you're like me, like this was many, many nights of laying awake and trying to figure out like what on earth are we going to do? And like what was that process like? Because I'm sure other people will be able to identify with how that feels to know that this is an issue and then like, what do I do? How was that for you?
So in our situation, we're actually very blessed with our school. They have an excellent dyslexic sped group.
Wonderful.
And unfortunately, there are laws and limiters to what they say and can recommend. So we do have to recognize that. But like I mentioned earlier, when we first found out Caleb was dyslexic, I personally had my own mental battle as a parent,
Sure.
accepting the fact that I felt like the dreams that I had for him were not going to be realized because I personally did not understand. Now we know more things when you do research, and we have some wonderful examples. For instance, Caleb wanted to be Albert Einstein as his scientist representation last year. For those that don't know, it is speculated that Albert Einstein was dyslexic. Leonardo da Vinci, Stephen Hawking, Richard Branson,
Yep.
um, several iconic scientists. And I often see my child picking those people to represent in his, in his science lectures, in his math moments. One of the things that Caleb asked me early in this journey, and I see it now, was, Mom, why does 2 plus 2 always have to equal 4? Those are the very same questions that these people asked and came up with new, quantum theory, space theory, Stephen Hawking's, Albert Einstein, theory of relativity, motion. These are not things that we think in that sphere of. So he very much does see in color.
That's awesome.
When does 2 plus 2 not equal 4? We don't
Wow.
ask those questions. So early in the diagnosis, it was a call to war is the best
Sure.
way to say it.
Yep.
Call to war on my own personal limitations to what I knew and just the acceptance of a challenge because
Mhm.
we're boys, we don't back down. We accept it.
That's awesome.
So it was that willingness to understand that there is always an opportunity for growth and development. And the only limiters that we have are what we put on ourselves, and we don't have to accept them. So research began, there are some wonderful, wonderful resources out there in the world. Some of them, unfortunately, are very costly and expensive, and they were not within our reach. We could not afford private dyslexic institutions at $42,000 a year, but we could afford private tutoring. We could afford extra help where we could, and we're very blessed we could afford this program. And this program has by far shown us the largest results that we have seen in the last 6 years.
That's so amazing. And I mean, like, here's the other beautiful thing. So I think another stigma is that this has to be a multi-year journey. There's no possible way that you could see results in a short interval of time. So, just to reiterate what you said before, like this was a couple of months that you went from having this result to having this result, like months, not years.
No, yeah, so Caleb's total enrollment time in the program was 5, almost 6 months, not quite. It's a little bit difficult to explain because, like you mentioned in some of the lessons, you're going at the speed of your child. So you may speed through a couple of the modules and you're like, this is great. And then you may get to a module that focuses more on where his problem or deficit is. And you
Uh,
may need to slow down, take a little bit more time. Maybe it's 2 5-minute days
yep.
instead of a 15-minute day. And sometimes you got to have a break. You just have to step back and say, we've done a lot today. Let's go have some fun.
Yeah.
So that does add to the timeline, but it was that repetition and that ability to flex and really just the short amount of time made the commitment so worth it because it was much easier to get Caleb to do 5 to 10 minutes than it is for me to get him to sit down for a private lesson for an hour. So
For
very
sure.
short. And then, like I said, just his numbers alone that I shared, the growth not only blew our mind as parents, his mind as the child and recognizing it, but the whole entire art committee at the school. So much
Cool.
so that they've decided to take Caleb out of additional dyslexic support classes. So now he just goes to the one regular dyslexic support class.
Cool.
And that still supports math and science and basic reading, but the specialty class he no longer needs.
Ah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, I mean, just to put some numbers to this from this perspective, like we had a phonological awareness test that you guys did at the beginning, and it looked like he was like 52% accurate. So that's it just means that it was really, really significant, like his brain was unable to hear a sound in a word and pick out where it was and take it out and put other sounds back together. Like that mental Olympics for his brain was really, really difficult. Would you say that that's true?
Yes, because historically, looking at the art committee results, we got auditory processing, auditory connection, phonological awareness, all of them every time when we met were considerably low.
Yeah, for sure. And so like we do the wide range achievement in reading and or reading and spelling before the program begins. And so for him, and this sometimes happens because of age, but he was at the first percentile when he started. And so it just means that he had a really severe case, and that can happen. And so sometimes when you have a really severe case, other people look around and they say, well, we can't do anything about this. This is significant. There's nothing to do here. But he went to 83% accurate. And this is in a couple of months. And then he jumped in reading to the 25th percentile, and he jumped in spelling to the 19th percentile. Those are statistically significant leaps in both of those areas. And I think it's just astounding to see how that's also translated into his everyday life. So for him to have that data also correlate to the school test, to have his journal be completely filled with writing and spelling, so some of the patterns in fairness on those assessments are really challenging, but to have pages and pages of writing and things that are spelled accurately mostly, and or, so I didn't mention this, but if he did a great job on his spelling test, but there were several of those that just had one letter off.
Right.
Okay, so he's got a little bit of work to do on the patterns, but had those been correct, it would have been the 73rd percentile or something like that on his spelling test. So his growth in how his brain was hearing and responding to the language is significant. And I think the cool part is just seeing what that looks like in real time, like from the real family, like what did that turn into for him?
Right. And we appreciate that so much. We are so just amazed by his results and his confidence that, it's like, hey, Caleb, there's we get to move a little bit forward. We're gonna, we're gonna graduate from fifth grade this year and we're gonna take a month off. And then he was like, I want to go back. Like I want to do some more because I think I can do better. And that's
Yeah,
part of that desire of realizing they can accomplish things. They can
for
do
sure.
things. It's within their wheelhouse. There's nothing stopping them but them. And so I love seeing that willingness to want to get in there and
Mhm.
say, you know what, mom, let's keep going
For
and
sure.
not put limiters.
Nope, it's that growth mindset that we talk about all the time, but if you're fixed mindset, it's either yes or it's no, it's black or it's white. Like you're either good at this or you're not good at this. But if you can shift into I can always grow, and I might be here right now, but I have the capacity, it's within my reach to do anything that I want. That's the mindset that is unstoppable. I mean, he applies that to every facet of his life, and I cannot wait to see what in 15 years Caleb McCoy is up to. I think that's just amazing.
I can't
Can you
either.
imagine?
No, I really, really can't. He keeps telling me that he wants to be specifically, he wants to be Chris Pratt from the Wild Kratts,
Love
and
it.
he wants to not only be a zoologist, but create technology that the Kratt brothers use, but that helps them, save these animals and learn more about them. And I just think that's amazing because you've taken two different sides of the spectrum and you combine them in one. And that is the very example of seeing in color that I don't see. And
Amazing.
I just think it's amazing to watch him work sometimes and the way that he thinks through things. I'm just astounded, and simplified. And those days of being worried and concerned, is my kid going to be successful? How hard is our journey through high school going to be? Is college even in the books for him? Is he going to be able to be successful? And I don't mean monetarily, I mean in life. Is he going to be able to do these things and fight the stigma?
Mhm.
And to see him grow like this just shows that those are limiters that people who don't understand put on themselves.
For
And
sure.
he's
I mean, like,
already broken them down.
for sure. He's a little guy still. I mean, I realize he just had a birthday, but he's still a little guy. And so if you can fast forward, like if he did this in 5 months, add another 5 months to this and look at what that could look like. And then add another year. Do you know what I mean? Like it's got the potential to be limitless if you allow it to be. And if you also put in the work and do the right things. So it's not just to say like you can wish it into being, but it's about being consistent. It's about doing the right things. It's about believing that it's possible.
Right. And if we statistically look at how he's done as we
Mhm.
continue over the summer, it seems like Caleb will be entering sixth grade on grade level for
Uh-huh.
reading and writing. And
Yep.
that is a bigger goal than we could have ever expected.
That's amazing. That's incredible. Yeah. No, so I'm excited to dig in, and we're looking forward to that piece too. But just incredible. And I thank you for being on here, Kristi, to inspire people, because I think at the core of it is this belief that my child is deserving of more than this. And a lot of people put in a lot of effort to try. And it's not to say that they didn't love him or that they didn't do their absolute best, but sometimes if you're not doing the right things, you spin and time passes. And so that doesn't benefit anybody mentally, academically. It doesn't do anybody good to spin in place for a period of time. And so I just couldn't be happier for you guys that you were finally able to hit the traction and then take off, because that's where the best parts of life come from, you know?
Absolutely. We are more than thrilled and excited. We can't wait to see how he grows and what he does next.
Yay, me either. Oh, that's so awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Kristi, and congratulations to both you and Caleb.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Troy. We really appreciate you. And thanks for allowing me to come on and talk about our journey.
Got it.